Hey guys, so yesterday in the work session, somebody was asking about how to turn a daytime view into a nighttime view. So I wanted to do a quick demo of how I might do that. If I had to turn this view into a nighttime view, I think I would take a few really kind of basic and simple steps. So the first thing that I would do is take all the layers that I have and duplicate them by pressing Control J. And then I would merge them, pressing Control E to create one total layer over top. So now if I turn off all my other layers, this is just a combined image from all of the layers below. So I'm going to call this brightening, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one shadow. And I'll just use color overlays. I'm just double clicking on the layer to bring up the layer styles panel. And on the brightening one, I'm going to give it a color overlay of a nice warm color like this, because I'm going to want to create a glow, like a warm glow that kind of comes out from behind the windows later. So I'm just going to kind of select a nice warm color here. I'll go with something like that. And as you see, this is on soft light, so it's not on normal, it's not on multiply, it's not on screen, it's on soft light. And then I'm going to also put this, this layer on soft light like this. So I'll do that, and then I'll just put a layer mask on it so I can work on it later. And then on the shadow layer, I'll do the same, but I'm going to take like a dark blue mask over top, and I'm going to put that on multiply, and maybe I'll change this so it's a little bit more blue and dark. Okay, that works. And this one I'm also going to set to multiply, maybe 90% or something like that. So we can already see, I hope you can already kind of see what I'm planning on doing here, but if not, just keep watching. Okay, so I'm going to darken that up a little bit more. There's a little bit of like funny color effects happening as these overlays get kind of blended together, but I think we can probably fix that later. So the first thing that I want to do is go into my layer mask and think about where I want the light areas to be. So in this image, we have a few sources of light. For example, we have the building back here, which would be lit up at night. We also have these light posts around the site that would be casting down beams of light onto the site. And then we have these fireplaces, these like obelisk fire pit things. So those would be giving off a nice warm glow. So you have to think about like, where is light coming from? In these seating areas, there's also some under seat lighting that would be coming down from there. So I'm not going to go through and paint the whole thing in, but I will show you like how, oops, got to move my layer back, how I would begin painting in these layers. So the first thing I would do is knowing that I have a layer mask here, I know that if I want light to show up behind, I have to erase from the layer mask. So I'm going to press E for eraser. And just to test this out, I'll plop down an eraser brush here, and you can see that like behind the eraser, it begins to paint out the blue background. So now I can select one of my brushes. And I'm just going to double check to see which brushes you were given in your file. So if you load this one called Light Beams, you will be able to work with this same one that I'm working with. There's also another one called Sunburst. And if you search around online, there's tons of places to get free brushes. I have a couple others that I might use. One is just a bunch of sky things like moon and stars. But sunbeams and light beams and the sunburst are probably going to be really helpful for you. So definitely load those up. If you can't remember how to do that, you can just go into your brush panel here and go import brushes and then navigate to that file and bring those in. So I have mine loaded already. So I'm on my eraser tool. I right click to access the brush panel, and I'm just going to go down and find my light beams. So I have a light beam here like this. If I click it on the page to erase, you can see it creates a really nice kind of like light beam gradient. So I'm going to right click and then kind of adjust this using the rotation here. And then I'll just double check where my light posts are. So there's one over here. So I'm going to make sure that my opacity is kind of high, like maybe 85% or so. Go back to where the light post is, and then I'm just going to give it an erase like that. Then I'll just rotate this around and continue using it for the other light posts around the site. So that one I might increase the brush size because it's closer in view. Okay, so I have some of those light beams erased out from this layer. Now I'm going to take a more targeted look at the light that comes from the building in the background. So I'll probably, when we think about how light distributes, it kind of floods out from wherever the bright source is, but we do have some hard edges along the edge of this building, and I don't want to just use a fuzzy soft brush everywhere I go, because that's just going to make everything look indistinct. So part of the artistry of working in Photoshop is understanding when you need to keep detail and retain hard edges, and when you can fudge things and kind of like give them softer edges. So I'm going to be more precise in painting in the light coming from the windows. So I'm going to use my polygonal lasso. I just access that by pressing L or going up to the lasso tool here. And I'm going to select the inner parts of the building where the windows are. And I'm going to kind of, I'm actually going to just go over this front ice sculpture here because I can select that out afterwards. So I'm going to select this. And I'm also going to press Shift so that I can add a selection, and I'm going to go to the windows here, and I'm going to just select the windows. Okay, so now that we have those selected, I'm going to subtract some things from the selection so that I have a more precise thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for my sculptures. I think they're in here. It's this sculpture right here. So if I want to deselect this from my selection, I will press Control and Alt, and I will select that. You can see as I hover over the layer that there's a little subtraction sign. So Alt is usually to detract from something or subtract from a selection, whereas Shift is to add, and Control just means we can control click on this to select it. So I'll do that, and you can see that it gets deselected from the selection. I'm going to go, I'll just like release those keys, and I'm just going to right click. I can't see my layer here, but I'm going to look for the next ice sculpture. It's this one right here. So again, I'm going to Control Alt and then click on the layer. So that deselects that one. And then I'm also going to use my polygonal lasso and press down Alt to deselect this light pole from the selection, because that would be blocking light in the foreground. So I'll get rid of those guys. So now I have a more precise selection here. And now I can go back up here to my shadow layer. And I'm going to, I can just delete this and see what effect that has. And that looks pretty nice. And then I'll deselect. So I'm just going to go Control D to deselect. And then I'm going to use my eraser brush and I'm going to select a soft brush like this and maybe give it a little bit less opacity. And then I'm going to reduce it and I'm going to kind of go along the edges and see if it's worthwhile. Maybe I'll increase the hardness a bit, kind of like highlighting the edges along here, because light would kind of come out of those edges and sort of highlight the building. So you always want to consider like what is the property of light? Like how does it act in photography or in the real world? So I think that looks pretty good. But what we would have is some light casting onto the ground in front as well. So I'm going to, again, use a soft brush here and increase the size of it and just begin to paint into the bottom here. I'm just undoing. I'm going to decrease the opacity as I go further away, just to give a little bit of a glow on the ground in front. Okay, so now I've fuzzed up these edges of the light sculpture or the ice sculpture, so I'm going to have to go in again. I'm going to Control click on him, and then I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer mask of the shadow, and I'm going to use the brush tool to brush in that edge again, just so that it's quite sharp. But actually, while I have that selected, I'm going to give him a highlighted edge here. So I'm going to go back to my eraser tool just by pressing E, and I'm going to kind of go around the edge of this and give him a highlight on the edge. And I'm just going to see how that looks. It's okay. I think it might be a little bit too much. So I'm just going to Control Z to get back to my selection, use the brush tool, and go back in and paint back in some of the darkness of the edge here. I can keep working with that later. Yeah, I think the less highlight, actually, the better in this case. Okay, so now let's look at these obelisks. I'm going to use my eraser, and I'm going to turn up the opacity so that it is around 85. And I'm just going to go into these areas and like paint back in, erase out the dark blue layer here, and then back here. And then I'll increase the size of my eraser, bring the opacity down just to give a little bit more of a glow around it. And I'm just using parentheses to increase and decrease the size of my brush as I go. So already this is looking okay. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. I think that this image could use a little bit more contrast between the foreground and the ground and the sky. If I was So now that just makes the sky a little bit more blue, kind of enhances the warmness of the tones from the base. And at this stage, I would just go in and keep using selections and brushes to paint in light where it would make sense to have light.